Thank you for joining the presentation on Import Data Doctor by Bill Drosos. The objective today is to review and demonstrate the importance of Import Data Doctor. Some topics that we'll cover are import settings, geometry repair tools, geometry modification tools. We'll do a live demo, then also have some time for Q&A. A little bit about myself. My name is Bill. My experience is in industrial design, product visualization, and additive manufacturing. We are PDSVISION. A lot of you know us formerly as Boundary Systems. We are also a technology leader and a first PTC global reseller and preferred services provider. And we have software solutions developed for both design and manufacturing. Some capabilities of ours include consulting, implementation services, professional training, cloud, and we also have a help desk. Below is a timeline that kind of shows the origin story. So Boundary Systems was founded in Cleveland, Ohio around 2006. Somewhere between 2007 and 2008, the PDSVISION group was founded in Stockholm, Sweden. In 2009, Boundary Systems became a preferred Windchill partner. And between 2013, Boundary Systems expanded internationally into South Africa. Between 2017 and 2018, PDSVISION Group acquired Boundary Systems, and more recently, around 2020, PDSVISION Group acquired NET in Germany. All right. Below are some strategic partners and solutions. So of course, we have PTC, and then we have Moldex 3D, Keyshot, and Sumerix below, to name a few others there. All right, so what is Import Data Doctor, right? It's a module that enables you to repair and modify imported 3D geometry. It contains both automated and manual tools, and it allows a user to analyze imported geometry to identify defects and problem geometry. All right. We'll take a look at import settings, specifically to start off with model accuracy. We should really use the external option to ensure that we're modifying the original geometry with the original model accuracy. We can also take a look at profiles a little bit. These profiles allow you to save import settings that can be used at any point in the future for automating the import setting specification process. We'll also take a look at two tabs within the details button. There's a surface tab and also the topology tab. Within that surface tab, we'll turn everything off to ensure that Creo doesn't automatically fix or modify the model. And this is because if you allow Creo to automatically fix the model starting from scratch, it can sometimes create more problems than were originally present. And within the topology tab, we want to enable the option solidify closed volumes. And this just ensures that, hey, if there's nothing wrong with the model and we import it, it'll create that closed solid for us. We'll look at some geometry repair tools. First, we'll look at, hey, do we have to necessarily start right off in IDD, right? Can we, start within Creo and use the normal tools that we know how to use in Creo to, delete a surface, create a fill surface, collapse the features. And then once we've done that, we'll show how to access Import Data Doctor, and we'll also look at combining all quills into one quill component. We'll also take a look at, removing unnecessary or redundant geometry, using the search tool, identifying and repairing gaps, replacing curves, using copy and paste special to assemble geometry, splitting a curve, merging curves, and then also we'll look at the geometry checks troubleshooter and look at some settings that we can check off there. Last but not least, we'll look at some geometry modification tools. So we'll look at creating a surface with boundary blend within the feature, translating geometry, analytical geometry convert options like convert to cylinder, convert to extrude, convert to revolve, and just take a look at what's the power of using those convert options. All right, so now that I spoke on that a little bit, let's get right into the demo here. Okay. So let's start off within Creo, and here we have a model that was imported. So it's already imported here, but I want to show you kind of the import process. So I'm going to go right now to open, and I'll just go ahead and locate that same file here. Go to import. So we can see here we have some import types. We have part, assembly, for example, and we also have these profiles. So if you see, I currently have my profile set to bill step import settings, right? And this just ensures that whenever I import a step file, for example, it's going to use the settings that I specified. So if I go over here to details and select that button, you can see that we have the model tab. And right here is really the most important one right here, which is model accuracy, right? So we have some settings here. We have automatic, internal, and external, right? We want to make sure that we have external selected, because that ensures that when we're importing a model, that we're importing it with the accuracy of the original model from the CAD system that we're importing from, right? If we use the automatic option, for example, that's going to basically allow Creo to decide whether or not it uses external or internal, right? So we don't want to give it any chance to not use the external option. So that's why we're going to go ahead and specify external right away here. Okay. All right, so once we're here, we also have the surface tab. So in that surface tab, I want to make sure that I don't have anything selected here underneath shape, right? So I don't want to have anything selected for keep B-spline surfaces, reparameterize non-analytical surfaces, perform G2 fix. I don't want to fix anything, right? I want to make sure that, hey, we're starting out with the rawest of rawest data, right, without any fixes before we go ahead and apply our own geometry fixes, right? So that's the surface tab. Now let's go to the topology tab here. And within here, you'll see that we have two options: join surfaces from layers, join surfaces from the same layer, group, or shell. Make sure that you have these set to no. And really the only option that we want set to yes is the solidify closed volumes, right? And this will just ensure that, hey, if we import this thing with the right accuracy, if it's fine and there aren't any errors, yeah, by all means, close this thing up, create that solid, right? So let's have that. Right now, if I wanted to, once I go in here through each tab and I specify my settings, if I want to save those settings so that later I don't have to go in here and manually select each one again, I can go to save profile. And once I'm here, I can just save this profile to wherever I want, so that when I import again, I can select that profile and I won't have to go into that details button, go through each one of these tabs and select the options that I want here. So. All right, okay. So now that we're here, let's take a look at this. So it looks like this main flat front surface isn't aligned correctly. We see that we have some gaps here, right? So the first thing here is to just show that, hey, if there's anything right off the bat on import without, before going into IDD that we can resolve, you can do that. So in this case, I can select this front surface. I can go to remove, get rid of that surface. And then from here, I'm going to go to fill, and then just, create my fill surface. All right, and I really just want to project these guys here. Let me make sure that I got my sketch set up correctly. Let's use this to orient top. Let's flip my direction and sketch. Kind of start over here and project with a chain. Accept those, then just use our tangent arc. Okay, so we got that in there. There might be some stuff that we have to get rid of. We can get rid of all this stuff and delete it here. All right, so now that's filled in. You can click OK. Looks like we have more stuff going on here that we have to get rid of. So let's get rid of that as well. Okay. So now we're good. Let's complete that. Right, so there's our surface. Now we also have to create a boundary blend, so we'll fill this in. There's our first direction. All right, we might have to add that one as well. Okay, so we got that guy in there, right? And we might want to just, merge these now. So there's my fill surface. There's my boundary blend. We can merge those. So I also want to bring these into the import data doctor repair process. So I want to grab this fill surface or the remove surface to the merge. And I'm just gonna go over here to editing and collapse. So I want to collapse all these features. So I'll use collapse the range of features, click OK. Then I'll also collapse the original import feature with this last one that I created. All right, so now when I go into edit, import data doctor, right, we see that we have this quilt here that's kind of outside of the original quilt component. So I can actually delete that because it's actually a redundant surface. So it's a surface on top of a surface. So I can select it, right click, and delete. Now we can also see that we have the original quilt surfaces, right? And also this quilt that we just created. I'm actually going to merge that. I'm going to go ahead and drag that and drop that, drag and drop it into the original one above it, right? So now we have that. Right, so at this point here, we can actually do a geometry check, and this will enable us to kind of expand this. And if I expand this quilt 279 component, you can see that it highlights and tells us some stuff that we have going on. So it says that there's one bad wireframe curve. So I can select that. And once you select it, it'll kind of zoom into that area. There's a bad vertex in that same area. It says that there's an unsatisfied wireframe, right? So also to note, these settings that I'm seeing here are also coming from what I selected as far as my IDD settings. So if I go to edit IDD settings, you can see here that I have selected with a check mark what I want this feature to check for as far as what's wrong with my model. So I have bad surfaces selected, bad two-sided edges, bad wireframe curves. And then also note I don't have selected, for example, poorly tessellated geometry, right? Or I'm sorry, poorly tessellated edges. If I wanted that selected, I can just click here, right? But it really has most of the stuff that I want to check for. So I'll just click OK here, all right? I can also check, for gaps too, all right? So I can do a Control F for find, search by gaps. I can give it a value like 5, for example. Do a find. Now you can see that it actually selects one gap here and it finds that gap. I can add it to my selection there. All right. So at this point, really, there isn't much left to fix because I fixed most of it, right in Creo using the normal surfacing tool that I have. But like there's this surface, for example, that I can select. I can right click it and delete it. And now we have this gap here as well, right? So what's important to mention too within here is that, if there's a certain area of the model that you want to work on and fix, you want to activate that area of the model. So in this case, because I have a gap between this surface at the top and this surface below, I want to select those surfaces, right click and activate them. All right. So once I do that, I can also say, hey, you know what? Now that I told you which surfaces I want to use, now let's specify, where that gap is. So I'll select this surface and that surface that I activated. Then up here, here's gaps and slivers. So I'll select that, come up here and say, hey, I want to, merge this edge of that side of the gap with this edge of this side of the gap. Click OK. So once I've identified that gap, I can now say, let's go repair this gap. So from here, I'll click on repair. And you can see that right away because I specified that gap, it's going to connect those edges and it's going to fill that gap in. All right. And notice too that we're only seeing the these mesh, kind of like these UV curves of the mesh on these two surfaces, and that's because we only activated those two surfaces. So just make a conscious effort that when you do apply a fix to geometry, that you activate, the geometry around the area. So to complete this, let's click the green check mark. All right. Let's check our geometry. All right, let's deactivate the surfaces that we selected and then do another geometry check. So we have, one gap here, for example. So same thing, I could go in here, I can activate these, for example, and I could go in here and say, hey, let's fix between that gap and that one and grab that edge, and that edge, for example. Okay. All right, so it was a lot easier to repair this model because we were able to, repair this front surface using normal surfacing tools. That isn't always the case. So for example, I'll go back to the same model. All right, and instead of applying this fix right away, I'll just go straight into the import feature, edit definition. All right, so now when I want to repair this, again, I can go to geometry checks. It's going to show what it is that I have to repair in the model. All right, so let's take a look at some more features that we haven't taken a look at yet. So to the right, we see that we have one more gap here. So this is kind of, a repeat of what we just did, but it won't hurt us to do that again. I'm going to first delete this surface 242 again. That's a redundant surface. Let's delete that. And once I delete it, now I can work on the rest of the model. So again, because we want to, close this gap between this right surface and this left surface, let's first select both of them, right click and activate those. All right, then I'll select those again and go to gaps, specify each edge on either side of the gap, then go to repair, and now that gap is fixed. Okay. We can also replace an edge with another edge. So for example, if I don't want to use this edge down here, right, and I only want to use this edge on this fillet, I can select the bottom edge and say, hey, you know what? We have to get rid of this edge. And as a matter of fact, I want to replace this edge with this one above it. To do that, come up here to the ribbon, go to replace, and then replace the bottom edge with this top one, and click OK, and there you go. All right. I can also utilize this fillet here to the right, and I can actually say, hey, you know what? Because this part is symmetrical, I can use this fillet and copy and paste it to place here on the left side where there's now a gap. So I can say, hey, let's copy this guy and then do a right click, paste special. And because I use paste special and not just a normal paste, I now have the option to take this copied feature or surface and move it. And once I do that, I can kind of rotate it, reposition it. And once I'm here, I can basically assemble this like I would a part. So I can say, hey, you know what, let's take this point up here and assemble it to this point. And I'll do this for 3 points. I might want to do that again here. Move that over. That point to that point. And this point to that point, and then this third point to the right here. Okay, so now that we fill that in, and notice though that it's not part of the overall quilt component, and we can see to our left that we have the GTS tree. So this GTS tree contains the original component and all the surfaces that make up that component. But because we just created a new surface, right, that shows up outside of the original component. So we now have to take this in order to actually modify this so that we can get rid of the gap between this surface and this surface, for example. I have to take this surface now, click and drag it into that quilt 251 component, okay? All right, so now that I'm here and now that I just assembled that surface in this area, right, I still have some gaps here, right? Now, I have one edge right here that starts here, comes down and curves around, right? I wanna split that because I need to actually fix the condition between this front flat surface and both this fillet and the fillet above it, right? But in order to fix it the way that I need to split that curve. So if I select that curve, I can say split curve and select the area right here. And now it's split. I have the top portion of the curve and the bottom portion of the curve. Okay. So once I'm here, I also want to make sure that I deactivate the surfaces that I don't need here. So I'll grab this one and right click and deactivate, or I can just come up here to the top in the ribbon and say deactivate, and any surface that's activated will be deactivated. Okay. So now I want to actually fix the gap between this surface and this surface. So I'm going to first grab this surface and the surface to the right, because these are the two that I'm working with. I'm going to right click that, activate them both, select them, define the edges that make up the gap on both sides there, and then go to repair, and now it's fixed. Okay. All right. Now we also have another condition down here. So you can see that this bottom left point, right, is kind of inset, right? It's not aligned correctly. So I actually want to use a tool called Move Vertex. And this is something that's powerful, but you want to be careful using, because if you don't have a nice clean surface, you just go grabbing the endpoints or a vertice, right, and you start dragging a surface, it can really cause unwanted changes to a surface. So just make sure that you have a surface like this that's pretty straightforward, pretty clean, that that if you move it in this corner, for example, it's not going to cause any weird geometry inside that surface. So all right, so let's go ahead and deactivate what I had. I can grab this surface now. I'll grab this one and just recreate this with a boundary blend. So I'll select that bottom fillet, right click it and delete it to get rid of it. Okay, and also notice that down here, we have an edge that's not it's not one edge, right? It's actually two edges. So if I grab both of those, you can see that it's not one continuous edge. So what I can do is I can actually grab this segment to the left and the segment to the right. I can say merge curves, and that's going to merge it, and it'll give me one edge right here. Okay. So at this point, let's go to Move Vertex, and now I can grab that vertex, move it, align it here, and snap it. Okay. And now that I've done that, I'll use a boundary blend, and I'll create my first direction and my second direction to create that. Okay. And again, when I create that surface, it's going to create it outside of the normal quilt component. So I have to take that now and drag it and drop it in here. So let's go ahead, hover above it, drop it in. Okay. So at this point, I've fixed most of the model, but let's just do another geometry check first to see what else has to be fixed. So again, we're in this area. So I'm going to come down here and grab that surface, delete it, activate these surfaces, select them. I'm going to fill these gaps in, then click repair. Let's check the model again, do a geometry check. There's nothing wrong here. Let's deactivate the surfaces first, check it again. Okay, so we're good. We'll click OK. Click OK again. And you can see that now I can take that and solidify it. Okay, now from here, let's take a look at some other features that we can use. Let's go to this other part here, and I'm going to go back into the import feature ID, edit definition, import data doctor. All right, so now let's go to the checks, do a import feature. All right, so I can see down here that we actually have an opening. So let's go into the boundary blend, repair that. Then again, drag that surface into the quilt component feature. Okay. Now, what's neat within here is we can actually, remove surfaces like we did in the first example outside of IDD. So within here, for example, if I want to get rid of this cut that we have, I can grab a surface. I can do my seed and boundary surface selection by holding Shift, selecting that top surface, holding Shift and selecting that bottom surface, and that gives me this whole seed and boundary surface selection. Then right here, once I have that selected, I can use the close tool in the heal group. And if I select that, you'll see it'll actually remove that hole or that cut for me. All right. Okay. There's also convert options. So if I select this hole, for example, and I'll select both surfaces here, we get the option up in the structure group to use these convert options. So if I use convert to cylinder, it'll say, hey, because that's a normal hole and you selected both of the surfaces, we know that we can create basically an analytical cylindrical geometry feature of that hole. So I can click OK here. If I want to at any point, if I expand this quilt feature and go to cylinder 682, I can right click and go to modify here. And then now, because it's an analytical feature and Creo knows that, that's a cylindrical surface, I can go in here and change the value of the radius from 2.1 to 3.5. Click OK and increase that hole size. Okay. I can also specify something as an extrude feature. So I can grab like these front surfaces of this tab right here and go to convert to extrude. All right, click OK. All right, and say that, for example, I want to offset that surface and move it. I can now grab that extrude surface, go to transform, right? And I can take that and just kind of move that surface. All right. Now, it didn't actually complete the way that I wanted to because it needs a datum plane as a reference so that it extrudes normal to the surface. All right, so let's go back in here again, and I'm just going to create a datum plane here. And let's do one maybe off that surface, offset about 5 units. Okay, so now if I turn my plane display back on, I'm going to go to that extrude feature, select it, go to edit, transform, and now I can say, hey, you know what? I want to move from this surface to this plane that I created. Click OK. All right, and now we see that we just bumped that surface out from where it was to where that datum plane is now. All right. We also have the option to do a revolve, for example. So I can say, hey, you want to grab these surfaces here. Go to convert to revolve. Click OK, and then same deal, right? I think it created it. I should revolve it around the other edge though. So let's grab these. Let's do a revolve, and we'll use, I don't know, this edge, for example, or does that compute? 3, let's grab that guy. And we'll use a different edge. There we go. So we basically grab this bottom flat surface and the surface loop around it, and then selected an edge on that cut feature that we wanted to use as an axis to create our revolve. So, yep, that's basically it for that. So I could get rid of that guy, and I'll go back into here and say, geometry checks, everything looks okay here, complete this, then click that green check mark. Okay. Yep, so that's basically it for the demo. So I hope that you got an idea of the power of using IDD. So if you want to learn more about import data doctor, our webinar topic presenters are all certified trainers and can dive deep into each topic. Training is available virtually due to the COVID restrictions, in center and also on site. And you can check our website for the full schedule of classes. If you require further information on this stuff, you can contact me directly at bdrosos@pdsvision.us. If you have any other questions more related to sales, you can contact sales@pdsvision.us. And we also have a lot of videos and webinars and stuff online on YouTube that you can find as well. So just search PDS Vision on YouTube. All right, so I guess I'll leave it open for questions at this point. Is there a way to check the gaps that you have created? Yeah, so just going back to what I kind of showed before, we'll just kind of come back here and I'll open up another model here. All right, so let's go edit here, import data doctor. Yeah, so if you do a Control F or just use the search tool, and you can actually do a look for gap and then specify the size of the gap. You know, I'll just use 5 for this example. Do a find now. I can just select all my gaps here, click close, and it'll show me every place, you know, in this model where there's a gap. So there's one here, down here, in this area, and here as well. Does the move vertex always snap onto edges, or is there a setting that needs to be enabled to allow it to snap to another surface? So it doesn't really, yeah, so in essence, it kind of looks like it snaps to an edge, but it really just looks for a vertex to snap to. Is the IDD part of Creo, Parametric? Yeah, it is. So it actually comes, you know, with the base package of Creo Parametric. So if you get any files from a vendor or whoever that need to be repaired, as long as you, if you import that model in, you just right click on the import feature, edit definition on that, and then you can kind of perform your fixes on it. How are and where are the profiles saved? Can the standard starting point be deployed via config? Yeah, I'll have to take a look at, you know, the actual config option. Mine just saves where my working directory is. So my working directory for this demonstration, you know, if I get out of it, is right here. So it basically just saves it in that directory that I'm working in, but I'd have to check to see if there's a config option to kind of specify another place to keep that. How to deal with having to change default part tolerance to a tighter tolerance or manufacturing process. Part ends up failing, how to deal with the failure. Yeah, so as far as a tighter tolerance, you're gonna wanna go back to the original person that you received the model from, because any deviation from the original is gonna cause an issue or can cause a lot of issues when you repair the model. So if you go into here, for example, let's just cancel this. If I go back to this model, go to File, Prepare, Model Properties, right? My accuracy, the absolute is 0.066082. If I go in here, start making changes, well, then you just modify the model and you're not modifying or making changes on the original. Should you check the fixed tangency box when repairing? You can check that. Just make sure that only the surfaces around the area that needs to be fixed are activated first, because if you don't, and it's trying to create a fix with tangency on the rest of the model, you'll start making changes that you might not want to be changed. But yeah, you can select that. The import filter, there are other import and heal options. Can you go through each one in more detail? I don't really have much time at this point to go back into that. If you want to schedule a separate session with me, if you're part of our help desk support system, or if you want to just send me an email saying that you want to jump on and take a look at more of those in detail, feel free to do so. Why do you stress folding the newly created surfaces into the original import surface? What happens if you don't? So yeah, folding the newly created surface into the new one just ensures that everything is part of the same component. So if I want to make an edit to the newly created surface and any part of the original surface that's part of the original component, I can't create that edit correctly unless it's part of the original fold of surfaces, and it actually kind of like merges them together, right? Kind of like when you're in Creo and you have an original surface, if you create a new one, you use the merge feature to merge those two together. So it also works in a sense like that as well. Will this be available as a recording? It will, yeah. So once this is finished, probably at some point tomorrow, our sales team / marketing team will have this uploaded on YouTube to review. Okay, so that looks like I got through most of the questions. So at this point, I guess I'll jump off. Let me take a look here. I think I got through most people. All right, yeah. So that's it for today. Again, if you have any other questions, make sure to contact me here at my email. If there's anything that you need to get a hold of sales for, there's also the sales email there as well to use. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day. Bye.